Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the Bladesingers, another new unit from the Total War Warhammer 2 Twisted and the Twilight DLC. It's not often you see red-headed elves, but I'm not complaining. I put them next to some Wardancers here so we could compare them, compare their stats that is. So basically they're pretty much a Wardancer variant, like a more elite version of them. They cost 1200, whereas Wardancers cost 800. And there is quite a difference in stats, so if we take a look between them, the biggest stat difference is the health. These Wardancers, or the Bladesingers I should call them, have 1200 more health, which is going to make them quite a bit sturdier. They have the same amount of armor. The base leadership is actually higher as well. So if you take a look, it's 80 compared to 70 for these ladies. Yeah. And so other stats are more similar. Speed is the same, which makes sense. Then the stats, you can see it now, are a bit lower on the Wardancers. They have -4, -4. If you compare it, their charge is also lower. These ladies do have armor piercing. I think the anti-infantry bonus is the same. That's 8. That's the same for regular Wardancers. And another big difference, well, yeah, I would say it's a pretty big difference, is that this unit has magical attacks, which aren't super relevant, but, well, it changes quite a bit. Of course, the biggest difference, I would say, is that they have armor piercing. And a different ability as well, instead of this useless ability, or mostly useless ability, of the Shadows Coil, which should really be on the other Wardancer variant, I believe. They have something that's a little more useful, which is Whirling Death. So if they're fighting something that doesn't have a lot of armor, they can use this, just activate it. And I believe it stays active. Yeah. And now they have more damage, as you can see. But they lost their armor piercing. So it's something to pay a little bit of attention to, but it gives them sort of a dual purpose, where you can use them against armor targets, and also use them against unarmored targets. And most of the time, I think you're going to want to actually activate this, because people don't bring like heavily armored units that much against Wood Elves anyway, because of the threat of Way Watchers, most of all. Just the fact that it's usually best to just bring a whole bunch of cheap troops against them. Now, other things, physical resistance, 20% immunity to psychology. They are, of course, woodsmen, or rather woodswomen, I suppose. And yeah, so a bunch of stat upgrades for 400, but how good is this unit? Basically, it fills pretty much the same purpose as the Wardancers, with the armor piercing being the main difference, and of course the stats I just compared being different. So the question is, are you going to pay 400 extra to have a better version of a unit that is barely used as it is? Well, it really depends. Like, the question is always, do you get your money out of it? So I think at 1200 they are quite expensive, and they're not really going to fit in most armies, but they could potentially serve a purpose as a chaff cleaner if they are well, efficient enough at killing chaff. Of course, there's another element to it as well, which is that in this game, a lot of things, basically everything, is better against infantry than it is against other unit types. So units like this become a massive target to something like Burning Head, Sea Fang, Pendulum, just any of those abilities that really wipe out infantry units. And despite having, you know, higher health than these Wardancers, I think they will still be pretty susceptible to it. So we're going to send them into a bunch of these filthy Bretonnian peasants and see how many of them they can clear. And I specifically chose 5 of these spear units. Okay, they completely wrecked them on the charge. That's kind of nice, actually. That unit is just instantly gone. Okay. That kind of reminds me of the old Forsaken. And they do have speed, so maybe if you have the micro and if there's nothing stopping them from doing this, you could cycle charge with them. Let's see how quickly they destroy this unit. Oof, the health is dropping super fast. Yeah, this totally reminds me of Forsaken in Warhammer 1. We just kicked so much can. So yeah, what I was saying was that a lot of the time you will see these cheap shielded front lines against Wood Elves just to occupy some ground. If it's Spearmen, it's even better because you can't just go in with some Wild Riders and smash them. So at their job of chaff cleaner, they seem to be doing a very good job. Because this unit, of course, could also be this unit could be supported by healing so that we don't lose any models. Because right now we're losing a decent amount of health. Not too many models. With an Earthblood or 2, I'm sure we could decrease that even more. So another thing they do, because they are quite fast, is if they rout a unit like they're doing here, they chase it down pretty quickly. Because most infantry is just not really as fast as them. But these are all things regular Wardancers can kinda do as well, and the problem with Wardancers and, you know, units like that, but especially Wardancers, is not really that they fight badly. It's mostly that it's difficult to get them to fight badly. Like in an actual battle, there would probably be a cavalry charge here, an Awakening of the Wood, or some other ability that blows them up, like Wind Blast. Or, you know, archers just peppering them, and in that case, that physical resistance is probably not enough. And they are more nimble than, let's say, Unit of Chosen or something. So you could sort of micro against it, but I still feel like they're going to become a very appealing target to, you know, spells and abilities like that. 1200 is a lot, especially for an infantry unit. So I think we can see that they are actually efficient at taking out chaff. So potentially you could bring 1 to just clear all the chaff. And just, you know, have that be your anti-infantry corps, that 1 unit that you just have to pay attention to and protect. Because they're really barely taking damage, which makes sense. These are just low-tier spearmen, but it's not unrealistic that you will fight masses of this cheap infantry in a real battle. They have pretty cool animations as well, like they jump around, even jump over their opponents. Yeah, I'm not too sold on this unit personally. I like how it's performing in just a straight up trade. It's even fighting uphill a little bit. But I think as Wood Elves, it's just going to be really difficult to use it. And most of the time your army is, and should be, more focused on just killing the enemy large units so that, you know, your dragon or whatever terror unit you're using and then take out whatever else is left. They also don't appear to have Vanguard deployment, which is actually a good thing because that would be kind of crazy. But, you know, it stops them from negating their major weakness, which is getting shut down by stuff before they can get into this sort of combat where they really shine. So yeah, I think that's gonna be a pretty big problem as well. Just getting them to combat. Although maybe with the Spellweaver's ability, I don't have it selected right now, but that gives Stalk and extra speed. You could get 1 to combat, and then you can see they absolutely do a number on just chaff infantry. It's not like it trades well into them even in higher numbers. So it's something to definitely attempt, I would say, to play around with. You just bring one of these and see how much value you can squeeze out of it. But in general, elite infantry in this game doesn't tend to work out unless in very specific scenarios, and I don't really see why Bladesingers should be different. Another thing I think is a pretty big shame is that they have magical attacks, because this unit could be a pretty decent unit in the dwarf matchup, which, yeah, you don't really have great infantry for that one, do you? There are Wildwood Rangers, which I don't think really work against dwarves. They used to. And if you look at the stats, you would say that they can, but I think the speed may be a little bit too low. In any case, they're not really being used. And maybe the Bladesingers with their anti-infantry would have been, you know, a solution. Also with the armor piercing against dwarves. Although dwarves could probably also shut them down with ranged. But the fact that they have magical attacks is just going to make it nearly impossible to use them against dwarves, I think. So yeah, this unit, it's not that it's a bad unit stats-wise, but I believe it's not going to find many places in many builds or playstyles for the Wood Elves, just because of, you know, the inherent limitations of infantry in this game, and also kind of a lack of synergy with the roster. It's not really a roster that tends to charge into enemies aggressively, at least not in most matchups. And yeah, you're just not going to be able to cover a lot of ground if you get a couple units of these. Keep in mind, most of the time, the lords and heroes are also not too cheap for the Wood Elves. And you kind of lack a lot of utility if you don't go for, you know, any cheap or any rather more expensive lords and heroes. So I'm only going to give this unit a 6 out of 10 score. I think it's going to be an amazing unit in campaign, but I don't think we'll see a lot of it in multiplayer. So in the next video I will discuss another new unit, which are the Glade Riders with spears. So until then, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.